The two ships both traversed the fog, blissfully unaware of the other. The British ocean liner, laden to the teeth with gold, sounded her whistle to signal her approach. Alarmingly, they heard another whistle blast in the fog, and immediately they jumped to preventative measures. Though the wheel of the ship turned sharply, it was too late, and RMS Republic's fate was sealed. But what would become of her nearly $3 million worth of gold? Welcome to Shipwreck Sunday. My name is Eleanor. Just a quick disclaimer for a younger audience before we dive in. This story may be disturbing to some, so viewer discretion is advised. Okay everyone, let's get into it. RMS Republic was originally built in Belfast, Ireland for the International Mercantile Marine's Dominion Line, sister line to the White Star Line, being built as yard number 345 by Harland & Wolff as Columbus. Columbus, as we know her right now, was launched on February 26, 1903, being completed on September 12, 1903, and her maiden voyage would take place just a month later in October of 1903. Before we get too far into her story, let's look at her specs. Columbus, soon to be Republic, was an ocean liner with her tonnage sitting at 15,400 gross registered tons. She was 570 feet long, had a beam of 67.8 feet wide, a draft of 34 feet 1 inch deep, and the depth of her hold was 24 feet. She had capacity for 2,830 passengers split up into 3 classes, and her crew averaged 300. As for propulsion, she was equipped with 2 4-cylinder quadruple expansion steam engines which turned 2 propellers, giving her an average service speed of 16 knots. Her IMO number was 118043, and her call sign was VFPK. As Republic, she was done up in White Star Line's livery, a red keel, black hull, and white superstructure with 1 buff funnel with a black tip. She wouldn't last long with the Dominion Line, and soon she'd become yet another White Star Line ship to sink. Thank you so much to our amazing YouTube members and patrons. If you'd like to have some awesome perks like episodes a full day in advance, join our YouTube memberships today. Okay, let's get into her career. Columbus was owned by British and North Atlantic Steam Navigation Company Limited and operated by the Dominion Line, starting her maiden voyage in October of 1903. After just 2 voyages, Columbus and 3 other Dominion liners, New England, Commonwealth, and Mayflower, were sold to the Oceanic Steam Navigation Company and operated by the White Star Line for use on their new service between Liverpool and Boston. This also changed her home port to Liverpool. Columbus would then be renamed Republic, the second White Star Line ship to bear this name. The first was RMS Republic of the Oceanic class, built in 1872, which was sold to the Holland America Line in 1889 and renamed Maasdam. The 3 other ships that were transferred with her were named Romantic, Canopic, and Cretic, respectively. White Star Line named all of their ships with the suffix IC, which is something that makes them all recognizable. For the next 6 years, Republic had an uneventful career with the White Star Line, and that leads us up into her final voyage. On January 22, 1909, Republic departed New York City at 3 p.m. bound for the Azores, Madeira, Genoa, and Naples with 525 passengers and 297 crew aboard. She was captained by Captain Inman Sealby, quickly entering a thick fog off the island of Nantucket, Massachusetts. Among the passengers were some illustrious folks, like James Ross Mellon, his wife Rachel Huey Larimer Mellon, their daughter Sarah of the Mellon banking family, and their family maid. Mrs. Sophie Mansfield Curtis, wife of George Munson Curtis, who was the treasurer of the International Silver Company. Mrs. Mary Harriman Severance, wife of Cordenio A. Severance. Professor John M. Coulter with his wife and children. General Brayton Ives. St. Louis millionaire Samuel Couples. Historian Alice Morse Earle, and Mildred Montague, Countess Pasolini. Traveling in first class were also Mr. Leonard L. McMurray, who in 1915 would also survive the sinking of the Cunarder Lusitania, and Mrs. Bessie Armstead Davis, daughter-in-law of Senator Henry G. Davis of West Virginia, along with her 2 children. We do have a difference between a couple of my sources here. One states that the ship maintained her speed, and the other says she reduced her speed as she entered the fog. What we do know is she regularly signaled her presence in the outbound shipping traffic lane via her whistle. At 5:47 a.m. on January 23, 1909, another horn blast is heard in the dense fog, signaling an approaching ship. Republic's officers and crew jumped into action, with her engines ordered full astern and her helm put hard aport. Back in these days, ordering hard to port would turn the ship the opposite direction, so to starboard, and this would expose the port side of the ship to the incoming liner. Out of the fog loomed the shadow of the Lloyd Italiana ocean liner SS Florida. Florida was captained by Captain Angelo Ruspini, with 839 passengers on board. The ship was a third of the size of Republic, with her tonnage only sitting at 5,018 gross registered tons, being 381 feet long and 47 feet wide. Florida had slowed as she entered the fog near the island of Nantucket, and right in her path at 5:47 a.m. was RMS Republic. Both ships would take evasive action, attempting to steer apart from one another, but it was too late. Florida's bow struck Republic amidships on her port side at about a right angle, essentially T-boning the White Star Line ship. Florida's bow was instantly crushed in at least 33 feet back to her collision bulkhead, killing 3 of her crew. When we look back at Republic's point of view, upon impact, 2 passengers were killed instantly. Liquor wholesale manager Eugene Lynch's wife Mary and banker William J. Mooney. Eugene Lynch was critically injured and he'd later die as a result of his injuries at Long Island College Hospital in Brooklyn on January 26th. This brings us up to our total death toll of 6. This is miraculous, especially given the situation and the time period. Still, even though there were few, their deaths matter, and I hope they rest in peace. Florida pulled back and the 2 ships separated. Given her forward collision bulkhead was still intact, Florida was in no danger of sinking and remained controllable still. She stayed alongside the damaged Republic. Aboard Republic, the engine and boiler rooms quickly began to flood, and the ship started to list to the port side. Republic had a brand new Marconi wireless telegraph system, and she became the first official ship in history to send out a CQD distress signal, sent by John R. Binns. Florida would jump into action to rescue Republic's complement, alongside the U.S. Revenue Cutter Service cutter USRC Gresham. Passengers were distributed between the 2 ships, with Florida taking on most of them. However, with nearly 900 Italian immigrants already on board, the ship was now dangerously overloaded. The absolute bro of the seas, White Star Line's RMS Baltic, commanded by Captain J.B. Ranson, also responded to the CQD and jumped to action, but unfortunately due to fog, she could not locate Republic until that evening. The ship was adrift, slowly sinking. If you want to know why Baltic was the bro of the seas, let me know and I'll make a video on her. Once Baltic was on scene, the passengers were transferred from Gresham and Florida to Baltic, but a riot nearly broke out when they had to wait until first-class Republic passengers were transferred first. Once everyone was on board, calmed down, and settled, Baltic set off for New York City. As for Florida, her crew covered the damaged bow with a sail and followed Baltic back to New York City. Republic could not be saved, despite Captain Sealby and a skeleton crew remaining for a bit to try to save her. Crew from Gresham even made mats to try to stem the flooding, but this didn't work. The steamers New York and Lucania had arrived by this time and waited as a futile attempt was made by Gresham to try to tow Republic. This failed, the crew abandoned ship, and the empty ship sank on January 24th with no further casualties. At 15,400 tons, she was the largest ship to have sunk at that point. Florida was eventually assisted by 2 tugboats and arrived in New York on the morning of January 26th, with repairs being completed in just 24 days, and she returned to service. She'd later sink in yet another collision during World War I with no loss of life. This event was a shocking success if we really digest it. But why, you might ask? At the time, ocean liners were not required to have a full capacity of lifeboats for their passengers, officers, and crew. On the busy North Atlantic shipping route, assistance from at least one ship was believed to be ever-present, and that lifeboats would only be needed to ferry all aboard to the rescue ships and back until everyone was saved. This played out flawlessly for RMS Republic and confirmed this bias, and it was this bias that would doom 1,500 people in the sinking of RMS Titanic. Only after the loss of Titanic would the number of lifeboats required be increased to accommodate everyone on board. Now, RMS Republic is remembered, but not for being the first ship to send out a CQD. No, she is remembered as the billion-dollar wreck and the millionaire's ship thanks to the rumored cargoes aboard. Some reports indicate that Republic was carrying gold and other valuables when she sank. One report is that she was carrying gold worth $250,000 at the time in American gold coins to be used as payroll for the U.S. Navy's Great White Fleet. In addition to the U.S. Navy coin monies shipment, various sources reported on a much larger cargo. $3 million in U.S. gold double eagles, worth $20 apiece. Among these, the Washington Post reported, quote, $3 million in gold coins lie in the rotting hulk of the White Star liner Republic, lost off Nantucket in January 1909. The Republic, damaged in a collision, was being towed toward New York by the Coast Guard cutter Gresham when she sank in 240 feet of water. A salvage attempt in 1919 was unsuccessful. Numerous other sources, including the New York Times, also report the ship having $3 million worth of gold aboard, and the U.S. government has laid claim to this money. There have been numerous attempts at salvaging the gold in the ship. Most recently, the Lords of Fortune LLC have planned on making a salvaging attempt as of January 7, 2024, but it's unclear if they have followed through with this plan or have gotten government approval to dive the wreck and recover what is estimated to be $10 billion worth of gold. This is the reason why Republic is remembered, for the gold within her holds. As for her wreckage, it was discovered by Captain Martin Barrell in 1981, and the wreck lies upright roughly 50 miles south of Nantucket Island at 40 degrees 26 minutes 0 seconds north, 69 degrees 46 minutes 0 seconds west, in a depth of about 270 feet of water. She's considered a treasure wreck, and the cargo belongs to the U.S. government, as I stated previously. RMS Republic made history twice. First, as the first ship to send out a CQD distress signal, and as one of the most valuable wrecks on the seafloor. One day, her cargo may be recovered, and we might learn the full extent as to what is truly down there. Until then, we await the fate of the billion-dollar wreck. The first commissioned aircraft carrier in the world dipped into Japanese waters upon her launch. Not only would she be the first aircraft carrier designed for this role, but she'd miraculously survive World War II to make it to the scrapyard, playing an important role for her nation during this time. Next week on Shipwreck Sunday, we get into the story of Hosho.